So Joshua chapter 5, verse 8 says, so it was when they had finished circumcising all the people that they stayed in their places in the camp till they were healed. I can really dive in. But then the Lord said to Joshua, this day, I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. This ought to be messing with somebody. This day I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. Therefore, the name of this place is called Gilgal till this day. Go ahead, take your seats. I want to give you your message title up front. Look at somebody and say, make the cut. What if I told you promise comes with a process? Promise comes with process. First thing, there is a crossover process. Come on, y'all get with me. Say it's a crossover process. The text revealed they've crossed over for the second time. The first, the Red Sea, and now Jordan River. The bondage of Egypt was far behind them, 4 decades removed, because we know that they were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. They're 4 decades removed from bondage, the captivity, the idolatry, the vanity, the iniquity. All of those things of that place should have been a distant memory to some, and only a story told to others. Because you see, Joshua and Caleb would have been the group, the tribes, if you would, that would have been living in bondage and in the wilderness. But you had an entire generation, because they were up to 20 years old. Those that belonged to the ones who were disobedient died out in the wilderness. So you have people that were born in the first year of the wilderness that have no recollection, no relatability to bondage. They've only heard stories. I'm talking to us way more than y'all saying amen to right now. I said they were not even born into bondage. Do I need to come down on the floor? I said they weren't even born into bondage. That's the last time I'm going. You need to catch me where I'm going. They weren't even born into bondage. They have no recollection of it. They have no relatability to it. They've literally never been in it, and they've never been in a place where it was. Am I talking? The sentencing and cycle of the wilderness was over now. Per the text, they're a few days removed. So they're a few decades removed from bondage. They're a few days removed from the cycle of the wilderness. A sinful generation had perished in the desert. Doubt, murmuring, and complaint should have been dead too. I said it should have been. I didn't say it was. I said it should have been dead. Follow me here. A remnant generation crossed over into the proximity of promise. I think sometimes when we recall this story, we act like when they crossed the Red Sea, when they crossed the Jordan, rather, that they automatically popped up into the promised land. Well, let me ask you a question. Did they ever dwell in Jericho? And so Jericho is the first place that we recollect that they go to after Jordan River. But the text has told us that there was somewhere else that they landed first. Somebody say Gilgal. We want to talk about walls coming down, but we haven't been to Gil. You ready to praise walls down, but you haven't been, you skipped right over Gilgal. You know why we skip over Gilgal? Because we don't really like process. We think once we crossed over that that's the end of it. We ain't promised now. That's not how the story goes. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Say that's not how the story goes. I want us to understand this. The crossover is God's doing. Say, we're not crossing over unless God makes a way. Until God makes a way, because he made a way when they thought that their backs were against the wall, but the wall was the Red Sea. And they were like, I don't know why you brought us all the way here just to get killed by Pharaoh, as if they had forgotten that they had been led by a pillar of fire. I know sometimes you can feel the enemy on your back, but say he can't touch me. Pharaoh's going to be on your back. Your past is going to be trying to recapture you. Watch this. I'm going to tell everybody in this building, and I know this to be the truth, your history wants you back. Where you came from wants you back. The enemy wants you back. Sometimes it's like the enemy wants us back more than we want to go forward. I ain't got time. Whoo. Are you hearing what I'm saying? They were in the proximity of promise. The crossover is God's doing this, Yahweh's doing. He'll make a way. The next step is quite literally on us. Can you imagine for one moment coming out of bondage, and God has now opened up the Red Sea? And let's just say this is the shoreline, and now God's made a way out of nowhere, and you like, God did it. Anybody ever seen God open up a way for you and you stood right there in that place and you said, God did it? Anybody, I don't want to point out anybody known that God has opened up a way for you and you said, God did it? And you stood there and you was like, God did it. And excuse me, it's like God is sitting up in heaven. It's like, yeah, now you do it. I opened the way. You must take the next steps. It's like we want God to open the way, and then we want him to transport us across. I already opened up the way. You don't want to walk? Talk about something. You walk by faith. No. You're going to need your left and your right on this one. And you can keep your eyes closed so you can walk by faith and not by sight, okay? Put your hand on your neighbor with somebody who's watching and praying anyway. Let me come back over here. The next steps are on us. Here we are. Yahweh has instructed Joshua to make flint knives for himself. Flint knives for himself. Say for himself. Remember, he's born in bondage. Anywho. Flint knives for himself and circumcise the sons of Israel. Somebody say again. The second time. I don't know if y'all are hearing the text like I'm trying to. He said, circumcise them again the second time. So you have a generation that there's a good chance that they were circumcised because they were born in bondage. Then you have another generation that has not been circumcised because they were born in the wilderness. But the Lord says, circumcise them. Because it says all of Israel. Somebody say, I am Israel. Ladies, this one's for you too. I'm going to get there. Somebody say, I am Israel. None born in the wilderness was circumcised. Listen close. Uncircumcision is a mark of foreignness to Yahweh. If you are uncircumcised, hear me by the Spirit. If you are uncircumcised, he doesn't recognize you. You're a stranger. You're foreign. Oh, you talking law? You better hold on. You best to hold on. So it's foreign to him. No circumcision, no covenant. God, I've been led by you all this way. You don't think that they had been led from Egypt across the Red Sea to the wilderness, from the wilderness across the Jordan into Gilgal? Say they've been led the whole time. How could you be led the whole time and yet be outside of covenant?
Come on, Pastor.
I know I'm messing with some people right now. Like, what do you mean? I've been led. Watch this. Sometimes you've been led because you've been following. You've been following Joshua, but you have no covenant of your. I'm only talking about I'm talking about these uncircumcised folk, because they've been led too, right? Because they had good leadership, right? But watch how God does it. God says, I need you to get a knife for yourself, Joshua, and I need you to circumcise all Israel a second. Somebody say, do it again. Let me keep going. Do it again. It's foreignness to him. It's an absence of covenant. Make no mistake, there must be a severance process. There must be a severance process, a cutting operation, oh God, a surgical treatment, a complete detachment. Watch this, a necessary wound. In order to walk in the faith, you must be wounded first. Y'all don't want to hear this. In order to walk by faith, I'm finna give it to you. In order to walk by faith, you must be wounded first. You know why you need to be wounded first? So that as you start walking and more wounds come, they're not foreign to you. Watch this. I've been wounded before. I've been cut before. I've been cut before, and there's nothing that the enemy can do to me at this point because I've already been, I'm cut out for this. Hear me by the Spirit. Flesh severance is necessary. The truth is, we need a clean cut. We need a clean cut. See, you might have been cut before, but you ain't never had some of us have never experienced a clean cut. I'm going to get to it in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Stay with me. Don't miss this. This cut. Somebody say this cut. This cut is connected to the compassion of Yahweh. How is the cut bringing a connection? Some of us want to get closer, but we don't want to get cut. Watch this. We want folks cut off from us, but we won't do the cutting ourselves. Say, this cut is on me. That's like 4 layers deep, but I got to come over here. It's connected to the compassion of Yahweh, the commandments of Yahweh, a covenant with Yahweh, and a continuance only through Yahweh. One more time. This cut is connected to the compassion of Yahweh, the commandments from Yahweh, a covenant with Yahweh, and a continuance only through Yahweh. Follow me here, recounting the reception of the second pair of tablets. There go that 2 again. Recounting the reception of the second pair of tablets, Moses gives Israel the spirit of the law. I just said Moses gives the spirit of the law. Moses gives Israel the spirit of the law when he tells them, circumcise, this is Moses talking, circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be rebellious no longer. Y'all thought Paul had it first, huh? Circumcise the foreskin of your heart. I'm going deeper than that. Circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be rebellious no longer. Hello, Pentateuch. Deuteronomy 30 speaks to returning to Yahweh. And therefore possessing the place of promise and greater prosperity. Does anybody in the house want to possess the place of promise and greater prosperity? I'm not talking about this false prosperity. I'm talking about God-given prosperity. The word tells us, and the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, watch this, that you may live. I've got to cut you. I've got to cut you. I've got to make a laceration so that you can live. And there are certain things, watch this, that have grown with us, that have grown on us, that God is saying, I've got to cut that off. Watch this, it's not the growing region, ladies and gentlemen, it's right here. I'll come back to that. But are you hearing what I'm saying? Jeremiah 4 begins with a lamentation, an advisement, and a warning. Verse 4, he says, circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskins of your heart. You would have thought that Israel would have gotten the message the first time. And here it is, Jeremiah is repeating the sentiments that Moses already spoke to Israel. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskins of your heart, you men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire. See, we don't like the backside of stuff. Lest my fury come forth like fire and burn so that no one can quench it because of your evil doing. So we got a witness from the Pentateuch. We got a witness from the prophets. Now, contextually in Jeremiah, this goes far beyond the growing region. I told you I was coming back to it. It's the ground rules for the body. Let me say it one more time. This is not about the growing region. It's the ground rules. Say it's the ground rules. It's the ground rules for the body. Side note, in the Proverbs, the text says, break up, come on, y'all know this text, break up your fallow ground. How in the world is he going from circumcision to ground? He says, I need you to circumcise your hearts to the Lord. And then the very next verse, he says, break up the fallow ground. I want you to consider this. It's about field preparation for seed cultivation. There's some things that can't be planted until certain other things are broken up. See, watch this. It's not that the ground isn't good. It's that it's been fallow for so long that now it needs to be broken up. And there's some things that God could plant in our hearts if we would allow him to break it up. There's some things that he will allow us to get to if we would cut it off. You can't give God all your heart if you're uncircumcised. If you still, watch this, let me make it plain, if you still letting flesh get in the way. Watch this. It ain't the fallow ground, it's your flesh. Break up your flesh. We got to do that. Are you hearing me so far? I still got a little bit of ways to go. Y'all with me? I want you to listen close. If we're going to hit the field, God help my soul. If we're going to hit the field, we got to make the roster first. Come on. If we're going to hit the field, we got to make the roster first. I dare anybody try and go jump on a football field and act like you finna play and you ain't on the roster. You ain't going to hit the field, but you're going to get hit on it. Say, I got to make the roster. How you going to make the roster when you haven't made the cut? There are certain processes that you have to go through to be on certain teams. You just can't walk on the court and act like you just finna get busy because you are you. No, there's standards, there's procedures, there's requirements, right? There's a curriculum, there's a crucible, there's something that you got to go through in order to make the kingdom. See, you can't just do what you want to do and then talk about some new kingdom. No, you can't hit the field until you made the cut. Somebody say, make the cut. It's interesting, though, because usually the coach does the cutting. No, the coach is coaching you doing the cutting. God is the coach. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And he's trying to coach us into making the cut ourselves. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So I got to make the cut first. Somebody say, knives out. Make the cut. I'm going to take a slight deviation. Watch here. Some of us have used the knives we were supposed to make the cut with to stab other folks in the back. That's not what the knife was for. He did tell you to make the knife, but it wasn't to use against the person in front of you. Because watch this. Woo! Thank you, Holy Ghost. Just because you cut them doesn't mean that you make the roster. Can I give you text? Watch this. How is it that Cain knew how to kill? He'd been watching his brother. How would somebody who worked the ground, come on, somebody that knows some Bible, how could the ground worker know how to kill something? He's been watching his brother. Because, see, his brother had to bring a sacrifice that was pleasing to God. Maybe somewhere in Cain's twisted mind, maybe I can offer God something he wants. Since Abel is so good, let me cut him up. Let me cut him down the size. No. Watch this. God, oh God, somebody, I'm going to get back to the text. Watch this. Stop trying to give God their offering. God wasn't looking for the first of the flock from Cain. He was looking for the first of the field. He didn't do well and sin. And God told him, sin is knocking on your door. And he still went and murked. You murked this bro. It's crazy. All because he didn't want to follow what God said. Some of us think that we can do what we want to do and God is going to be accepted of it. God is like, no, you're going to have to cut some of this stuff off. This whole flesh thing, you're going to have to cut this mess off. Romans 2:29, Paul says this, circumcision is that of the heart. Y'all not heard it enough times yet? Circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, not in the letter. Hello, epistles. Paul is saying in grace what Moses was saying in law. I said Paul was saying in grace what Moses was saying in law. It was never about skin. It was always about sin. Circumcision is a heart procedure resulting in a heart posture. It's a heart procedure resulting in a heart posture. This is vital. There needs to be a healing process. Most of us can get with the crossover process. We might be even disciplined to get through the severance process. But the healing process. The healing process. The text tells us, So it was when they had finished circumcising all the people, they stayed in their places in the camp till they were healed. Don't miss this. Stay still until you're healed. Nope. I said stay still until you're healed. Some of us can't walk right because we didn't heal first. But you're saying what I cut off was in the spirit realm. You don't think cutting stuff off in the spirit realm doesn't leave spiritual wounds? Oh, you think because you're spiritual, you're not going to have wounds. Well, I beg to differ when Yeshua had to have Timothy touch his side and touch his hands. Thomas, thank you. I'm always saying Timothy for Thomas. I be messing there. At least you know your Bible. He told Thomas, watch this. This is the risen Savior, still wounded. Watch this. I've been resurrected. Oh God, but I still got scars. I said, I've been resurrected. Oh God, God has brought me back from the dead, but I still got scars. And you notice when he first got up, they couldn't touch him. You know why? It was still. I'm gonna just go out here a little bit. I'm gonna step out there a little bit. Just forgive me if I'm being eisegetical. Maybe it was a little sensitive. Come back over here and exegete. But have you ever been injured and then somebody tries to touch you? What do? Even if you love them. You do that Heisman pose. Some of us have been hurt because we tried to walk before we were healed. Watch this, we tried to go to the next place in God, but you didn't heal. You thought because you cut off your flesh that now you were free to go. No. You got to heal first. Because watch this. Sometimes the flesh that's being cut off is not just on you. Sometimes it's people that you connected to. You're going to act like cutting off people don't hurt you. Well, they wasn't no good for me anyway. I had to walk into my new season. You was acting like that 3 years later. You know when you let them go, you was butt behind hurt. I said it. God, you want me to cut them off? Yeah, them. Watch this. Don't let them go. Cut them off. See, we don't like to knock God. We don't like to knock God. If you didn't do, watch this. You know what he says about circumcision? He said, if you are not circumcised, you will be cut off from your people. What's worse than being cut off from the people is we're going to be cut off from him if we're not willing to make the cut. We want to talk about we getting ready to grow and we got seed in the ground in this harvest season. Yeah, you ain't make the cut. Say, I got to make the cut. Sometimes we can't go ahead in Yahweh until we're healed from what had to happen. Say it had to happen. Doing the will of God will cause some wounds. We want to walk in this faith unscathed. We want to walk in this faith unscarred. And that's why American gospel is failing miserably. Because everybody's going to get everything they ever wanted. They're never going to have to go through anything, and God's just going to allow all this stuff. When God says several places, I gave you the Tanakh, and then I brought you over to the so-called New Testament. I gave you your boy Paul. Paul like, no, it's the same requirements. God ain't changed. It's still the same requirements. It's the flesh that I need off there. You can't be fleshly and godly. No flesh will glory in his presence. You think when he said die to yourself, he was talking about your spirit, or was he talking about your flesh? the flesh nature, sin nature. Receive this. We can heal if we're willing to make the cut. We can go from weakness and waywardness to well-being and well-doing. We can function in the fullness of the Father Yahweh. We can go further instead of failing in the faults of the former. Like they're saying right here, there must be a detachment process. Because you cut it, you healed, now you got to detach. Gilgal means a wheel rolling. Gilgal is the first campsite on the other side of Jordan. West of Jordan, east of Jericho. So watch this. They're in between the Jordan, the place that God brought them from. They're facing the place of Jericho, the place that God is about to walk them through. But before they can go on to the next spot, they've got to take camp in a place where God is saying, I got to roll some things away from you in this. Before you go on to your next place, you're about to get a victory. Somebody need to come with me. I said, you're about to get a victory, but you got to heal first. I said, you're about to get a victory. You're about to have a walk-in win. You're going to walk right through this, but you got to heal first. Imagine, if you will, being wounded in a groin region, having not healed, trying to walk. And some of us ain't learned to walk right because we haven't healed. We went to cutting because we was bold in God. We went to cutting and slashing and all this good stuff. I'm going to cut it off. You remember a couple years back, Dr. Tigley was like, cut it off. And we get all into it. Cut it off. That's my homeboy, by the way. But we get with it. We go knife hand and we go silly, but we forgot the healing process. And we're wondering why we're so sensitive. Why we can't make connections like we used to. God, I got rid of, anybody can come with me real quick. God, I got rid of all that stuff. But something ain't right. I cut all this stuff off. I thought I left my past. I thought I left bondage behind me. God help my soul. But I'm still sensitive. I thought I left that last cycle behind me, but I'm still sensitive. And God, I've cut what you told me to cut. But God was like, stand still until you're healed. And watch this. This wasn't just individuals standing still. This was the whole community was. Watch this. We can't go forward as a community until we heal as a community. You can leave bondage behind you all you want to until you collectively healed. Some of us have individually healed, but we haven't collectively healed. And we're so caught up in making sure that we are good or whatever have you. We ain't checking on the next person. Are you healed yet? I wonder, is anybody asking their congregation, I know I want to do the next big thing, but I'm going to ask y'all, I'm going to ask the highlights, are you healed yet? Because we can't go nowhere until everybody's healed. Sometimes, God help my soul, we haven't been going forward because we have to keep going back to Gilgal. Nope. I said we can't go forward. Can somebody hear me by the Spirit? We can't go forward because we have to keep going back to Gilgal because you never healed. You had childhood trauma. You cut it off, but you didn't. You had self-esteem issues. You cut it off, but you didn't. You didn't. I'm ready to move forward. Let me ask you a question. Have you healed? I'm ready to go forward in my house. You know what's happened in your house. You know what's happened in your house. Well, we all cut it off, but did you let them heal? Say, I got to heal first. I know you're tough. I know it. I know you can get through anything. You can weather any storm. But nobody can't say nothing to you. Nobody can't touch you because every time y'all act like I ain't telling the truth. They talking about something ain't not even got nothing to do with you. You offended. You know why? You didn't heal. And now we're having aches and pains. Anybody have an injury that they didn't let heal right? You still feel it, don't you? Y'all think it's different in the spirit realm? When you didn't go through the recovery process. See, you knew God was going to give you the crossover process. You might have even accepted the severance process. But you want to skip over the healing process because you're ready for the promise. But before you can even get near promise, because remember, they're not in the promised land. They're just in the proximity. Watch this. You can have crossed over the second time and not have touched promise. Watch this. And when you cross over, watch this, because they crossed over what was salty. Oh, God. Oh, they crossed over what was salty, and they crossed over what was fresh. Because they crossed over a sea, and then they crossed over a river. So watch this. When they had the fresh crossover, they thought that they were ready. But they crossed over into the fresh, still having flesh. And sometimes we've received a fresh word, but we still have flesh on us. And God said, no. Watch this. He stops them in their tracks. You can't go. Stop. I know y'all ready to go. Stop. You just came out of a cycle for 40 years. You just crossed over Jordan. You ready to go. Stop. Get the knives out. Got to heal. There's got to be a detachment process. Watch this. There's a difference between departure and detachment. And we better learn the difference. Because some of us have departed from places, but we haven't detached from them. Some of us were birthed. I'm talking about the generation in the wilderness. I ain't talking about y'all. Some of us were birthed and or bred with issues that should have been dislodged. Here's the thing. They've been growing on us and with us, but they were supposed to be severed from us. There are some things that you were dealing with that you weren't even born into. What does the wilderness in the generation know about bondage? Can I ask this generation, what do we really know about bondage? We talking about 400 years. But watch this. It doesn't matter if you're removed, but you still have the reproach. I'm in the text. I said it doesn't matter if you've been removed, if you still have the reproach. The problem with our community, I'm talking to us now, is we still have the reproach on us. And some of us have thought leaving this place was going to do it. Because watch this, they had left bondage 40 years ago, but the reproach was still on them in the promised land. You can relocate, but if the reproach is still on you. You think strongholds are tied to area codes. No, they're tied to people. That's why if you ghetto and you go anywhere, you go find you another one. I said what I said. If you ratchet, when the next place you move, you know who you're going to find? You're going to find some more ratchet people. Just like if you're a kingdom, if you have to relocate, guess what you're going to be looking for? Watch this. We talk about being cut from the same cloth, but are we cut off from the same flesh? Okay. The place of captivity, idolatry, vanity, iniquity were left after the first crossover. The place of doubt, murmuring, and complaint were left after the second crossover. However, ties of reproach from Egypt yet remain, lingering, loitering around. There's some stuff, I ain't being prophetic, it's just a fact. We ain't got to be deep, we ain't got to act like we deep. It's just some stuff that we just know, right? So this ain't me trying to be deep. This is just stuff I know. There's stuff, watch this, let me get real deep real quick. There's some stuff in your family. There's some things, there's some proclivities. I see it. There's some proclivity. Come on now. There's some proclivities in your family and yeah. There's some in mine. My father was a bishop with self-esteem issues. Oh, no. Don't pull him off that don't pull him off that pedestal you had him on. Don't pull him off that pedestal you had him on because you thought he was all this before you knew he had problems too. Well, how is it that he was able to get there? You know what he had to do just about every day? Cut him off. There's some addiction. I see it. You're dealing with somebody in the room. Somebody in the room is dealing with addiction, and now you got a propensity for addiction. Yeah. You're going to hit somebody. A broken clock is right twice a day, shoot. There's some things that you're dealing with. Yes. There's some problems that you're going through. Now tell me, I know that. Now tell me how to actually fix them. Stop being deep and trying to get me into a mystery and watch this. Why don't we start preaching how to actually have some solutions? Watch this. You want God to do what he's telling you to do. God did not say, I'm going to circumcise you. He said, no, get the knife yourself. Joshua, get the knives out. Watch this. You won't be delivered until you detach. How are you in a place of promise, still not delivered? See, some of us think that we're still in bondage. Most of us ain't in bondage. Truth be told, we ain't even in the wilderness like that. We're in the proximity of promise. And it's eating us up because we still feel bound. We know that we're in the proximity of promise. I can see it. Somebody say, I can see it. Say, I've crossed over 2 times. But something's still attached to me. I've been through the salty. I've been through the I'm here. I done broken the cycle. Why do I still feel this bondage? They got to tell me about what bondage is. I don't even know. But I got to move. The reproach is on me. I got to move. Reproach hasn't been removed. This is key. Some in this generation never knew, some in this generation never knew the bondage of Egypt, yet they bore its reproach. They were birthed and bred in the wilderness. They bore the burdens of bondage from a disobedient, derelict, and dead generation. Some of us are dealing with bearing the bondage of a disobedient generation. It ain't even that you did it. Watch this. You didn't even do it, but it's on you. Y'all act like I ain't talking Bible. You didn't, what? Yeah, you know some stuff that you did. I ain't got to go down the line. But there's some stuff, anybody ever just get frustrated sometimes because like, yo, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. I've been trying to do what God told me to do. Why am I still, what's going on? Why is God, watch this, why is God stopping the progress of his people? I didn't say the enemy. I said God was stopping. I didn't say the enemy. I said God was stopping the process. They would have kept on walking. If God wouldn't have said stop, guess what they would have did? They would have walked right into Jericho with no covenant. We got to get rid of this. Okay. They never knew bondage. They bore the reproach, right? Born in the wilderness, bred in the wilderness, bearing this disobedient generation stuff. Derelict. Do you know why they were derelict, ladies and gentlemen? How is it that you were supposed to teach them when they woke up in the morning? You were supposed to teach, you were supposed to talk with them when you walked along the way. Am I in the Bible? Watch this. We want to send our children to school to learn things that we should be teaching them ourselves. You worried about the devil, I mean DeSantis, you know what I mean. You worried about him taking history out. What are you teaching your children? Who? What? Sandra's son had to tell me like, hey, you know we might be related, right? True story. But he had to dig it up. You know why? Because we don't tell each other we don't tell our own history. I can't go back 4 generations because of the reproach. Oh, God, I almost lost my mind. I said, okay, can I be real 1 minute? We know it was some incest back in the days. What? We know this. What if I told you MF had historical backbone to it? Y'all don't want to hear that kind of preaching from the pulpit, so let me come back over here. Let me come over here. When they were trying to breed folk, they were trying to breed super slaves. Oh, y'all don't want to. Oh, sorry. Am I doing too much? Am I doing too much? You want to know why we're really so athletic? Imagine if you survived a trip that long with barely any food in your stomach. You would have had to have some kind of genes. And then on top of that, watch this. When you sailed across, if you made it, all the other ones would have died out. You can go ahead and turn the channel. It's okay. Watch this. Those who were sick and those who weren't strong enough to make the voyage would have died on the way. So watch this. The strong ones made it over. And then when the strong ones that made it over, they took them and started breeding them. And when you bred a big one, guess what they did? They took that big one and brought them to another big one. And you wonder why stuff that goes on in you, because you got a reproach. You don't even know about some of this stuff, but the reproach is still, you weren't even born in it, but it's on you. Until you cut it off. You can't go forward. Because if you do, you'll be hobbling unhealed. Let me get back over here to the test, because somebody think I done wandered off and in the la-la land and stuff. And now because we want to tell the whole truth, you want to rely on somebody else to do your job. You worried about what they teaching your child in school or whatever, hey, because you ain't teaching them at home. You couldn't wait for someone to be over. Yeah. Inbox me. I got time. You couldn't wait for summer to be over. And you know we have the nerve to say, these kids don't have no training. If you have a child that is in your house and you say, these kids ain't got no training, I'm going to start looking for your children. You worried about somebody else's household. What about, you know what? You know what? You know what? I got a word for you and your household. Get the knives out. And after you cut, remember there needs to be a healing process. Before you detach and get ready to go forward, you got to heal. Let me get out of here. Receive this. The Lord says this day. How is it that they've come this far? It's been 40 years since he's released them from bondage. He had Pharaoh tell them, let my people, he had Pharaoh tell them, y'all can go. Pharaoh gave the release order. Did he not? Pharaoh was like, y'all got to get up out of here. You ain't got to go home. But you got to get up out of here. But you know why Pharaoh died? He couldn't cut him off. He couldn't cut him off. He wanted them back. They would, watch this. Let's reverse this one time real quick. Watch this. Pharaoh was being plagued because he was stubborn. Y'all think we different, huh? You know, if he would have recognized that the plagues were really, like, the plagues weren't just about the plagues were about the gods. The frogs, he was just making fun of them. Let me just mess with y'all real quick. Because, you know, he killed all the firstborns, but some of us missed the text where they said he destroyed all the gods. That's what Yahweh came in there and did. He's like, yeah, I'm taking your firstborn, your household, and your field, but I'm killing these gods too. And how is it that he killed the gods and these jokers still resurrected Apis? You know the bull. You know why they still could remember how to rebuild that thing? Because the reproach was still on them. And God was like, y'all can't go no further. You can't get into this. Watch this. You can't get to the next level until you're ready to cut the last one off. I said, you can't get to the next level until you're ready to cut the last one off. He said, this day, 40 years of wandering. And because we cut it off, now watch this. So God caused them to cross over both times. We agree. They had to do the steps, but we agree. So God caused them to cross over. So God made a way for them. They participated, and they crossed over. They're on the other side of the Jordan, in the proximity of promise, but they cannot proceed because God says there's another process. And when they finally participate in a process that Yahweh is telling them, then he said, this day, I've been allowing you to proceed, but you still had a reproach on you. Nope, I don't know if I got enough people on that one. I've been allowing you to go forward. I've been allowing you to go forward, and you thought it was all good because you've been getting further and further and further away from bondage, and now you're even on the other side of the wilderness, but God says, stop. Before you go to your next level, I need you to cut this last one off because the last one is connected to your first one. It's still connected to bondage. A whole people, I know I might be saying this too many times, but I really got to get us to get this. Watch this. You're stuck with stuff that was just you were born into. You didn't even do it. You were just born into it. Some of us were born in the middle. Some of us, come on somebody, some of us were born in the middle. And we like, I don't even know what y'all talking about with this bondage. Why do I have reproach on me and I didn't commit the sin? You didn't even know that you were walking in sin because the previous generation was derelict. They didn't remind you that, watch this, there's some things that you still have to do. I said this last week, and God has been pressing it on me ever since. Watch this. A lot of us want to give our children what we never had, but we won't teach them what we had to go through. We're giving them everything and taking nothing. Nope, listen again. We're giving them everything and taking nothing. They had been giving promise, but they hadn't taken away the flesh. Because nobody taught them about covenant. I ain't talking about the growing region. I'm talking about the ground rules. Somebody say cut it off. One more thing. There is a proceeding process. The director's cut is available. You know, when a movie comes out, there's more than one version. See, because when they put it in the theaters, they make it shorter. But then the director has his own. The director has his own cut. And it's a longer version, and it gives you more details. And how many have ever watched the director's cut and say they should have had that in the movie? Well, the next time God take you through a longer process, you just remember what you just said. Yeah, that was a got you. I set you up. I did it. I'm sorry. Pray for me. I set you up on that one. They should have left that in the movie. Huh? That was the part I needed to make this other part make sense. This is the elongated version because you can skip right over this and head right over to Jericho and shout them walls down. But some of us have been shouting the walls down, but we're sensitive because we haven't healed. We can't cut a step. We can't cut a step because we wouldn't cut the flesh. There's too much flesh in the way. Colossians 2:11 says this. The text says, in him you were also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ. Listen real close. The final cut is made as we choose Christ daily. I hope you heard what I just said. I said the final cut. How could it be a final cut, but I have to make this choice daily? That's the only way it stays detached. You want to know why a lot of stuff keeps coming back? We didn't really cut it off. You know why you didn't really cut it off? It's not because you didn't get the knives out. It's because you never did it with Christ in your life. We never involved him in the process. Right? Because he's the only thing, watch this, because the only thing to cut away this kind of reproach is the word. Because the word is sharper than a... You didn't cut it with the word. You tried to talk about it, but you didn't use the word. The word is sharper than a two-edged sword, cutting asunder the bone and the marrow. It will get between everything. In him you were also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of the sins of flesh by the circumcision of Christ. The final cut is made when we choose Christ daily. Captivity, idolatry, vanity, iniquity. They may try to regenerate. They may try to reattach. Somebody say, cut that off. Doubting, murmuring, and complaint may attempt to reemerge. Somebody say, cut that off. No matter of fact, cut that out. Cut that out. All that murmuring and complaining, cut that out. Huh? All that doubting we keep doing, cut that out. You know when a child is just doing something that's getting on your nerve, cut that out. It's like I hear the Lord from heaven like, y'all need to cut that out. That's just, it's foolish at this point. See, this possession, prosperity, and promise comes after we make the cut. They didn't step a foot in promise until after they made the cut. They had crossed over twice. Huh? They had crossed over twice, but they couldn't step foot into promise until they made the cut. You want to know why things are not working the way they should be, knowing that you're where you're supposed to be. Some of us know we're where we're supposed to be, but it's like we can't go forward. Again, this is one of those things, I'm not trying to be deep. I just know this is going on. I ain't got to be deep. It's just the facts. I can't go forward, but I know where I'm supposed to be. That's a frustrating place to be. Because it's one thing when it's like, okay, I know there's somewhere else I need to go, right? I just got to find my way there. There's a whole nother thing to be like, no, I'm where God told me I should be. I know I can't go back. He closed that off. Well, he closed your way back off. But you got to cut your way back off. Okay, let me do it again. I said he closed your way back off. But you got to cut your way back off. See, he closed what's behind you. You got to cut off so that you can go forward. And there's fallow ground. But fallow ground is not unfruitful ground. I said fallow ground is not unfruitful ground because he says break up the fallow ground. If it was unfruitful, he wouldn't have had you sow there. But you couldn't sow until you were ready to break ground. And these are, watch this, because I hope y'all know what season we are in. You got to break the ground first. You're going to have to disturb some things. You're going to have to detach some things. And then really the key to this is learning how to heal before you proceed. Stay still until you heal. You trying to push your family and you ain't healed. Okay, maybe I'm digging too deep. You want to push everybody else. You ain't healed. You can encourage everybody else. You messed up because you ain't let yourself heal. Somebody in the house got to hear me. I'm talking to my own self. You ain't healed yet. Stay still. Recover. Until you recover, you will not be able to reap. Until we recover, I'm talking to us all, until we recover, we will not be able to reap. Sit down somewhere. Heal. Your whole house need to heal. You ain't got it right with the folks in your house and want to talk about the church. The church. What's messed up in your house? What malignant flesh you been allowing to grow? Just hanging on you. You wondering Why it's so difficult to go forward? It's not because God ain't brought you through. Say, he's brought me through. Say, he's brought me over. Now I got to cut it off. Remove the reproach. Recover. Then you can reap. Give God praise right now.